I hope you're well. I'm going to use two examples of monumental lies, how the media promote them, and how it is a horrendous effect on our country, on the truth. Just two, and there's 1,002. I have a list here from Mr. Producer of clips from Kamala Harris, Joe Biden, Bernie Sanders. Let's see, some others here. We have Raphael Warnock, the usual commie bastards. And they keep talking about the slaughter of the Gazan citizens. Many of them keep using that number, 30,000. It was 27,000. No longer do they even say where they got it from, nor do the media. Now, keep something in mind. The media invite these people on as guests. So they want Bernie Sanders on Face the Nation, even though he's inconsequential. They want Raphael Warnock on Meet the Press. These are the most radical elements in our society. They want them to say what they keep saying. I had the misfortune, serious misfortune. I was flying today, and I'm on JetBlue, which is a great airline. I'm not talking about them. The lady next to me was watching CNN, Mr. Producer. Now, of course, my screen wasn't working. You ever have that? My screen's not working, so I'm sitting there like I bump on a log because I would have put Fox or something on, or ESPN or whatever. And she's watching this. Now, she's reading a book while it's on the screen, so I'm watching it. And it's on, and I'm reading what's being said in the titles that they're putting in. I dare you to watch CNN for 2 hours in the morning. And MSNBC's even worse. It is non-stop propaganda and lies. And so the media invited Sanders, these reprobates, Warnock, the others on, keep talking about the statistics, the death of the Gazans, and this is the hook now they want to use to ensure that Israel is defeated, that its people are constantly attacked, because this is their base in the Democrat Party. They're all out of the closet now. Israel's attacked viciously, and now all the anti-Semites, including the Democrats, including Biden, they're all out of the closet. There's a great piece written where a gentleman says, yes, Biden only supports Israel when Israel kowtows to Biden. He never supports Israel when it has a strong prime minister. He only supports Israel when Israel does what he tells them to do or his party tells them what to do. Obama tells them what to do and so forth. And I thought, that's 100% right. But I want to go on here. We have Sanders, who is a horrendous, of course he hates America too, horrendous SOB. And he wants to cut off all aid to Israel unless Netanyahu is toppled. Now listen to this punk. Didn't he accuse us of colonialism and imperialism, Mr. Producer? Trying to conduct coups of leaders we don't like who are duly elected? Those are communist leaders, of course, that he likes. So now Bernie Sanders is an imperialist and a colonialist. And he's not alone. They all are on the left. And they keep telling the Israeli government what it must do. And yet, it's amazing. Even many significant leftists in Israel are saying there's no way the people of Israel are going to accept a two-state solution. Period. They're united in this. They have a few oddballs, and the oddballs get all the attention in the American media. But I want to go on and prove something to you. There was a statistician who took a look at what Hamas has been putting out. Statistician's name is Abraham Weiner, W-Y-N-E-R. And he's a top statistician. He's a professor of statistics and data science, for God's sakes, at the Wharton School of the University of Pennsylvania and faculty co-director of the Wharton Sports Analytics and Business Initiative. Sounds like a pretty important dude, doesn't he, Mr. Producer? Like one of the smartest nerds around. So he writes this piece 5 days ago. It's available to the Democrats. It's available to their media. It's available. And they ignore it, as they must. Bernie Sanders ignores it. Warnock ignores it. Jake Tapper ignores it. Wolf Blitzer ignores it. Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, he ignores it. They all ignore it, as they must. Now, I can't read you the whole thing. We will post it. But he says the number of civilian casualties in Gaza has been at the center of international attention since the start of the war. The main source for the data has been the Hamas-controlled Gaza Health Ministry, which now claims more than 30,000 dead, the majority of which it says are children and women. That's exactly what Biden said during his State of Confusion speech. Here's the problem with this data, he writes. The numbers are not real. That much is obvious to anyone who understands how naturally occurring numbers work. The casualties are not overwhelmingly women and children, and the majority may be Hamas fighters. If Hamas's numbers are faked or fraudulent in some way, there may be evidence in the numbers themselves that can actually demonstrate it. While there's not much data available, there is a little, and it's enough. From October 26 until November 10, 2023, the Gaza Health Ministry released daily casualty figures that include both a total number and a specific number of women and children. The first place to look is the reported total number of deaths. And he has a graph. He says the graph of total deaths by date is increasing with almost metronomical linearity, as the graph shows. In other words, it seems like it goes up each day, more and more with precision. The same number of men, the same number of children, the same number of women. He says, wait a minute, that's a red flag, number one. He says, surely this regularity is almost not real. One would expect quite a bit of variation day to day. In fact, the daily reported casualty count over this period averages 270 plus or minus about 15%. That's strikingly little variation. There should be days with twice the average or more, and others with half or less. Perhaps what is happening is the Gaza ministry is releasing fake daily numbers that vary too little because they do not have a clear understanding of the behavior of naturally occurring numbers. Yeah, I would guess that's part of the problem. Says, unfortunately, verified control data is not available to formally test this conclusion, but the details of the daily counts render the numbers suspicious. Also, we should see variation in the number of child casualties that tracks the variation in the number of women. This is because the daily variation in death counts is caused by the variation in the number of strikes on residential buildings and tunnels, which should result in considerable variability in the totals, but less variation in the percentage of deaths across groups. In other words, obviously, if you're hitting more buildings, more people will die. If you're focused on tunnels, less women and children will die, more terrorists will die. He says, but that's not shown in the numbers. Period. It's always mostly women, mostly children, as if the Israelis are going through and just bombing apartment buildings, one after another, and not dealing with tunnels. Now, we know that's a lie. Let's see here. He says, similarly, I pointed that out. This lack of correlation is the second circumstantial piece of evidence suggesting the numbers are not real. But there's more. The daily number of women casualties should be highly correlated with the number of non-women and non-children, that is, men, reported. Again, this is expected because of the nature of battle, the ebbs and flows. What he's saying there is, look, you're saying all these women are dying, all these children are dying, but there aren't days when more men are dying than women, Mr. Producer. How is that possible? And why is it the same 70% every time are women and children every single day? Virtually the exact same percentage of women and children are dying as opposed to men. He says that's incomprehensible. He says, consider further anomalies in the data. First, the death count reported on October 29 contradicts the numbers reported the day before on the 28th. Insofar as they imply that 26 men came back to life. This can happen because of misattribution or just bad reporting. There are a few other days where the numbers of men are reported to be near zero. if these were just reporting errors, then on those days where the death count for men appears to be in error, the women's count should be typical at least. What he's saying is they're playing with the numbers. So when they're putting near zero for men, they're jacking up the number for women. You see what I'm saying, Mr. Producer? Because they need to have a certain number of quote-unquote people dying every day and an increasing quote-unquote people number dying every day. So when they have men nearly at zero, they have to jack up the number of women and children. He's saying that's obvious from these numbers. Most likely, the Hamas ministry settled on a daily total arbitrarily. We know this because the daily totals increased too consistently to be real. Then they assigned about 70% of the total to women and children, splitting that amount randomly from day to day. Then they infilled the number of men as set by the predetermined total. Okay, now we have to say this number of men died. This explains all the data we've observed. There are other obvious red flags. The Gaza Health Ministry has consistently claimed that 70% of the casualties are women or children. This total is far higher than the numbers reported in earlier conflicts with Israel. Another red flag raised by Salo Eisenberg and written about extensively is that if 70% of the casualties are women and children and 25% of the population is adult male, then either Israel is not successfully eliminating Hamas fighters or adult male casualty counts are extremely low. This by itself strongly suggests the numbers are, at a minimum, grossly inaccurate and quite probably faked. Finally, on February 15, Hamas admitted to losing 6,000 of its fighters, which represents more than 20% of the total number of casualties reported. So taken together, Hamas is reporting not only that 70% of the casualties are women and children, but also that 20% are fighters. So he's saying 20% are terrorists, 70% are women and children, 10% are other men. He said that's impossible. That's impossible. Not only do official Palestinian death counts fail to differentiate soldiers from children in their own official numbers, but Hamas also blames all deaths on Israel, even if caused by Hamas's own misfired rockets, accidental explosions, deliberate killings, or internal battles. So he says the truth can't yet be known and probably never will be. The total civilian casualty count is likely to be extremely overstated. Israel estimates that at least 12,000 fighters have been killed. If that number proves to be even remotely accurate, then the ratio of non-combatant casualties to combatants is remarkably low. At most 1.4 to 1 and perhaps as low to 1 to 1. And by historical standards of urban warfare, where combatants are embedded above and below into civilian population centers, this is a remarkable and successful effort to prevent unnecessary loss of life while fighting an implacable enemy that protects itself with its own civilians. So what's the takeaway here? He's a top statistician in the United States of America at the Wharton School. He's a senior position at the Wharton School. This is what he does every day. He looks at the numbers. He says, this is a lie for these 5, 6, 7, 8 reasons. This was published 5 days ago. It's received no attention on any cable channel. It's received no attention on any network. It's received no attention in the New York Times or the Washington Post. Over at the White House, they continue to lie. So we're getting lies over and over and over again because it doesn't fit the narrative. It doesn't fit the scenario that they're trying to project on Netanyahu and his government and the Israeli people. They're trying, literally, the White House, the Democrat Party, and the media, literally, to rally our nation against the state of Israel with flat-out lies about casualties. You can check it yourself, how the Gaza Ministry of Health fakes casualty numbers. It's by tablet. We'll have it on our Mark Levin Show website immediately following the program, like we do all articles. Just imagine this, and all weekend long, all the media outlets lied, all the senators lied, all the congressmen lied, Biden lied, Harris lied, they all lied because they want Israel to lose.